So I just got done filming a couple scenes from independent film that I'm working on. Just basically about uh, my time spent in school, the training that I do, um, just some goals that I set aside from uh, anything that you already are used to me describing as far as any ambitions that I have. But the last scene where you see me saluting a picture that I hung up on a pole, um, it was a picture of an officer by the name of Kevin Brame. Pardon me if I get the name, if I say the name wrong. But he was an officer who was killed in Dayton, Ohio, I believe. Pardon me, there's flies in my house. He was killed in Dayton, Ohio, and he was shot in his driveway, and the crime remains unsolved to my knowledge. And he was a black officer, and it was important to me. When I found his picture on FBI.gov, I wasn't just looking for black officers who were deceased that I can hang up pictures. I was just hanging up pictures of just people that are most wanted, missing persons, because I took a class at Cops Training Portal, and it was basically, it helped me come to an understanding of the job when you're looking for missing and exploiting people, specifically on reservations, but also, just in general. I came across this picture, and it really touched home because, I'm a black man, I'm a law student. Of course, as I used to work for University Police at Penn State. I was an auxiliary police officer for 4 months. It wasn't a stint. A stint is something that is just an experience that is just, a short period of time where you gain nothing. Some people refer to something as a stint, like if you went to the pros and you only played like 1 year or a few months, or you really didn't make an impression. If anything made an impression on your life, it's not a stint. If you made an impression on the people on the job, it wasn't a stint, whether it's athletics, sports, entertainment, or otherwise. All right. So I don't take it personal, but I really have to say that this is personal because on the topic of Kevin Brame, he was a black officer. First off, a lot of people, there's a lot of cop haters out there. There's a lot of people that just really don't like good guys. It's popular to be the bad guy, coming up in the 80s and the 90s. Some Scarface's famous last words were, get a load of this guy, you're never gonna see a bad guy like this again. So it's from gangster movies, mob movies, it became popular way before hip hop music. It was, you go back to cowboy movies with John Wayne and Clint Eastwood. When there was westerns that, our parents used to watch, there was always the people that were rooting for John Wayne and the people that were rooting for Clint Eastwood, but then there was always that person that rooted for the bad guy, okay? This generation is full of a lot of people stop rooting for good guys. So whether it's in hip hop or whether it's police work, people don't root for your local pastor in the same way that they don't root for your local police officer. People don't really care about firefighters. They really, really don't. You know what I'm saying? People shake the hands of a firefighter when they're off the clock because they know they got a fat wallet full of a lot of Benjamin Franklins. But when you see that guy or those few good men on that fire truck, do you really think females really care? I doubt it. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't. Do you really think guys really care? Do people really stop and look and see that those guys are going into flames and there may be no turning back? Okay? It's the same thing with police officers. people off duty, oh, thank you for your service, because you have nothing to worry about. You know what I'm saying? They're not on duty. You might not, you might not be. You're probably not in trouble because they're off duty. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So, you have that, but then you have the fact, you're black, coming up, it's a narrative that's beat into our heads as black men that you're going to be no good like your daddy, or you're going to be like the generations before you, or you're black, so you're probably going to play a sport or sing us a song and dance, but you're not going to teach a class. You know what I'm saying? How many people out there do you have you had elementary teachers that were a man and they were black? Yeah, they were men and they were black. First off, elementary teachers, junior high, high school teachers, they're rarely ever a man. But when you have a man and they're black, that's rare. What about a doctor? What about a dentist? When you go to get your teeth taken out or your tonsils checked, and the doctor comes in, or the dentist comes in and he's black. Is that often for you? What about when you need brain surgery, or a heart surgeon, or a bone specialist? You know what I mean? They're really, how often do you, in the emergency room, or probably not in the emergency room, but when you go get a checkup, or even a pharmacist, that they're a man and they're black? You people out there who have behavioral conditions, how many people do you have a therapist or a psychiatrist that's a man and they're black, prescribing you your medication, analyzing you to see, what's going on in your brain? You know what I'm saying? So it's not that this never is the case. It is a case, but when people actually do have a doctor that's black or a lawyer that's black, OJ had to go look for Johnny Cochran. You know what I'm saying? It's not that Johnny wasn't knocking on everybody's door like, yo, I'll help you people out. It's just that how many people are going to trust, oh, man, I don't know, man, I'm black. What am I going to look like with a black lawyer? A black guy who's a defendant and a black lawyer? I don't know. I'm going to try and go with the white guy because it's more of a sure thing. Yo, man, trust me, man, I got this shit. I went to law school, I passed the bar. I know what your problem is, man. On top of that, I feel your pain. Like, I've been in your shoes before. Let me do it. I don't know, man. And then you just, you don't even want to pay him his full worth. You're going to pay somebody else the full worth. You're not going to pay this guy the full worth. Why not? You know what I'm saying? So it's just really jacked up. And the same thing that other people say, I question myself too. Sometimes I question my own kind. Sometimes people question me, and then I get mad when I question my own kind sometimes. So it's just really like, it's just the way the world is. But on the topic of Kevin Brain, you got to think, just because a man is a police officer, or just because a man is a lawyer or a doctor and he's black, in the back of his mind, sometimes he really doesn't want to go to work. He may feel like, man, is it really all worth it? I never knew this guy, but I'm just saying, it was important for me to hang up this picture. I'm not doing it for clout. It's important because, look, man, this is how I feel about life in general. We got things that we want to do, right? Like, I achieved some of my music goals. I got a lot of music goals that I'm going to achieve in the future. There's other things I want to do. I want to box, you know what I mean? I'm not too old to fight a certain amount of fights, but it's probably a little too late to probably go 50 and whatever, okay? 50 wins and whatever, all right? But what we don't finish in life, the Creator, our higher power, God finishes for us, all right? It's not our job to do everything we want to do. It's our job to do as much as we can. But just like in the movie Hustle and Flow, when that guy, he had the record deal. He got the record deal from the character played by Ludacris, right? But just when it was good, he went to jail, and he had to spend the rest of his life in jail. But the chick that was his ride or die chick, somebody who really understood him. Like, she really wasn't ride or die throughout the movie. She was more like a down bottom chick. But he began to see, man, if he wants a chance in life, he can't treat people lesser than human just because he can. You know what I mean? So he started looking at her and treating her more humane. And in the end of the tape, and the end of the movie, while he was riding away in a squad car, she held up that tape in the air like, I'm gonna carry on your legacy. So the thing is, you never know who it is. It could be the person you least expect that not only believes in you the whole time, but stands up to take the weight, like no badge left behind, no man left behind, no woman left behind, no tape left behind, right? These guys that died, Tupac, the Biggies, you know what I'm saying? All their intellectual property went to somebody else. Some of it may have went to greedy people, but some of it may have went to people that say, nah, we're gonna keep your shit banging from now until infinity, from 93 until infinity, all right? We're gonna keep your memory here. We're not gonna let it go to somebody who's just gonna, disrespect it. You know what I mean? But, the important thing is, God told me to say this, is that, if you're out there doing your job, you're a black police officer, you're a black law student, whatever, people are gonna remember you. You know what I mean? People are gonna remember you. Even if you're not in school, there's a lot of people like, think about George Floyd. Think about, anybody who's Amadou Diallo. Think about all these people that were slain. In retrospect, before they were slain, do you think they thought that one day that people would be chanting their name, screaming for justice? Do you think that they thought that I'm gonna inspire, a movement through my passing? They probably didn't even think that. They probably were just on their way to the store or on their way to the train or whatever. But now you can't go anywhere without seeing a t-shirt with George Floyd's name on it. It's a shame that people really don't speak up more about Amadou Diallo. I met his mother. She came to speak at Penn State. I gave her a hug. She spoke about her son and the injustice and all of that. You know what I'm saying? But the point of what I'm saying is, sometimes cops or even law students or just black men who, they may be musicians and they may even try to do it seriously and go big, like me. But they have other things that they do just in case one thing don't work. But whether it's music or it's police work or it's landscaping or whatever it is, sometimes you really think that, man, my impact in this world is really not going to make a difference. But you never know who may be hanging up your picture if you're missing or you're dead and gone. And not only that, because if it was just that alone, then it would really be for nothing. But you hanging up a picture, and this is why I encourage people to do this, right? It deters crime. Because if anybody had anything to do with Kevin Brame's death, and anybody knows about it and they see that picture, or they see somebody hanging up a picture on the internet, that's gonna strike them fear in their heart, and it's gonna convict them, and they might even want to say, fuck it, I'm tired of running, I'm gonna turn myself in, right? But not only that, it makes people stop and look like, damn, man, that's sad. For every 5 or 6, maybe 7 people that walk by that don't give a shit, there's always 2 or 3 people that say, man, I'm gonna do something with my life. You know what I mean? But more important than that, I just want to say that earnestly, to anybody out there, if you ever saw me hanging up a sign that had to do with any of your families or any of your friends or any of your co-workers or anybody who you yourself would want to help as far as bringing justice to the situation, just know that even though early when it comes to forensic studies, and also the work as far as me being a self-employed independent contractor. As far as my creator, my higher power, God, will allow me to go as far as my education and employment, I'm gonna do my best to help, people who are also seeking for the same justice, not just for Kevin Brain, but for Lori Page, and for every picture that I hung up, right? Every individual, right? I will do my best to bring the offenders to justice. And if you think forensics officers aren't a part of bringing people to justice in a courtroom or to a place where a judge and a jury can, figure out what to do from there as far as give them time or whatever needs to be done, or a missing person being rescued, then you don't know anything about forensics, okay? So it's bigger than music. It's bigger than, just the studies, the independent films. This is a real badge, okay? This is really what I do, you know what I'm saying? Officer Corleone, that's my doing business as, but I paid for that doing business as. This number is a real number. It registers, okay? My LLC is a real LLC. My laboratory is a real laboratory, all right? The forensics app that I created for police officers to use is a real forensics app. Real police officers can use it, you know what I'm saying? So this is just what I do. Just know this, it's not like just a work in progress. It's a work that will be finished, and it's already blessed by God. So just know that, that's what that scene was all about. Other than that, I just also want you to think of something real quick. And it's really important because, it hopefully will help you stay encouraged. So as you know, for like 4 years, the past 4 years, I haven't smoked any cigarettes. I haven't smoked any weed. And I've only literally been on a few dates. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm just gonna keep it real. I used to have a problem tricking, some of you don't know what that term is. It's a slang term for buying sex, all right? My head was in the right place, and, I just really, if you ask me, drugs had a lot to do with it. But since, I focused my life on school, everything has been a 180 turn for me. And I purposely devoted myself to separate myself from people who smoke cigarettes and people who do drugs and alcohol. Even though I have nothing totally against weed, it's just something that makes me lazy, and it's something that I can't do based on my job, right? But I also took a vow to speak sparingly. I took a vow to not hang out so much with just recreation, to stop doing music so much, to redirect my focus. I took a vow to graduate college. I also took a vow of celibacy. So in other words, not absolute celibacy, but to have little as sex as possible, and to mostly stay focused when I do have sex, to actually try and be friends with the person that I have sex with and not just have sex with them, all right? To literally try and build them up and be friends with them and look at them like not just an equal, but somebody who can really one day 100% live out the kind of life that they want to live out and not stand in their way. And it's tough because, when you see everybody partying and smoking weed and, all the opportunities to trick, you know what I'm saying? it's really tough, but it made me it built my character, and not like a character like a role that I'm playing, but discipline is what I mean by character. It taught me patience and humility. It taught me that everything doesn't come on my time. Just like a minute ago when I was editing the video that you can see whenever you look on YouTube, of the footage that I filmed tonight outside. Hanging up the picture and exercising. I was editing it, and just when I went to upload it to YouTube and Instagram, like you're looking at me right now and you could see me, the correct way, right? I hit a button and the picture literally turned sideways. So instead of my head being up here, my head was on this side and my feet were over here. So it's like I'm sideways, right? So I hit it the whole video, you're watching it, and it's like, it's all, it's sideways. So you would have to turn the camera this way, you know what I mean? And it's, so I had to do it all over again. But it really, God spoke to me in that and said, listen, man, you're editing your film. And I got tight for a minute. And some of you don't know, tight as slang for saying mad. Tight, like, how is tight mad? Where I'm from, tight is mad. You know what I mean? Somebody's like, oh, I'm tight. You say tight because if you say you're mad, you're going to get more mad. So you say tight, so you tighten up and you don't get mad. Okay? It's just reverse psychology. But, so anyhow, God spoke to me and said, yo, listen, man, you're training to do forensics work. This is the most difficult work in police work. All right? Just imagine like you're a negotiator. Imagine like you're like, a responder who has to like defuse a bomb or talk down somebody who is aggressive or about to do something dangerous. I took classes on this, cops training portal, and I took classes. I'm certified to talk down veterans who are, deal with PTSD or Afghanistan, Gulf War syndrome or whatever. I'm certified to negotiate with police officers that are really frustrated and mad, like, you know what I mean, like really out of control, want to, on the verge of losing their job. And you're like, why would you do that? Like, who are you trying to be, FBI or CIA? Listen, man, when you take classes like this actually helps you if you want to be in the military. It also helps you if you want to be in a police officer, a correctional officer, a firefighter, even a construction worker. Some people don't even really understand. This really, the classes that I take are not just forensics classes. They're also psychology classes and things of that nature. And these are all the same type of men, like police officers, firefighter, construction workers. These are guys that really do a lot of hard physical labor, and they're really, really, it's really intensive work. And sometimes these guys get really, like, if you know any of them, if you have a dad, a brother, a cousin, a roommate, a boyfriend, even a girlfriend, right? You know what I'm saying? Or a woman in your family, you know that police officers, guys in the military, guys that have a lot of testosterone in their body, construction workers, firefighters, can go from 0-100 in a flat second. And that's the reason why a lot of people, because they've witnessed the bad side of cops, they've witnessed the bad side of military guys, firefighters, even guys who are athletes, and this is why a lot of people don't understand. Everybody thinks everybody envies athletes or big guys or whatever. Nah, man, it's a two-told tale. It's a love-hate relationship when it comes to guys that are big. That's why a lot of people aren't really so hype when guys actually become, things like that, because they think we become dicks, but it's really tough. In one aspect, yeah, maybe we do become dicks. What do you expect? when you're paving concrete all day, or you're doing demolition, or it seems all glorious. Truck driver, oh my God, he's so hot. Yeah, hot ain't the word. He's pissed. He used to be on the road driving truck, and he thought it was glorious when he saw it on the commercial. Then he realized that he has to use the dolly and carry stuff off the back and drop it off at the store and wheel it back on, and sometimes it falls off the side and he has to pick it up in 5 minutes and be at the next stop. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, when I was editing this video, God said, hey, listen, man, you gotta get some more patience, man. You got patience, but life is gonna try you at every corner, man. Just treat this situation right here like you're defusing a bomb, or like you're talking down somebody that's pissed, or like you're hired at a police department. It's what you do right now with your forensics lab, your virtual lab, your remote work, where you could do whatever at any remote location. Yeah, that's cool right now, but when you work at a department, you're gonna see that it has to be snappy. You know what I mean? And it has to be 100% and 20%. 110% is in the 80s. It has to be 120%. And it's 10 more percent every year, So, you either move out the way for somebody else to do it, or you say, all right, look. And so what I did, I said, you know what, man? It's not. This video was only gonna be about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I could do it all over again. So what I had to do was, turn off my phone, turn it back on, and start from scratch. And I did it all over again. And guess what? It's already uploaded and people are already watching it, likes and shares everywhere. But the important part is, it's a message that's being shared with people. So no matter who you are, bottom to top, you can look, even see in the rap game, how many people had record deals 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, right? On their way to the top, in jail, serving hard time, might not ever see light again. You know what I mean? Some of them died, and it was just here. You know what I mean? Some of them, and I hate to talk about it like this, but even the Martha Stewart situation, right? I know it seems like this is going, in different directions, but if you have common sense, you know what I'm talking about. Martha Stewart, she had her company doing fucking fantastic. Out of the blue, she goes to jail. Imagine how stressed she had to be. But she came out swinging. She served her time like a G. She came out swinging. She's worth 3 times more than what she was in the beginning. So life does that. And you gotta really, buckle up. So it doesn't matter if you do what I do or if you do what she does. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So that's what I learned. But another thing is, you know what, man? I'm glad I actually recently took time to finish 4040 Vision, so you could hear it. Make sure you go and you check out 4040 Vision on YouTube. It's a short story that I wrote years back. See, 4040 Vision is about a guy who became 40 years old and looked to his future, right? And it was around the same time, coronavirus was going around, and before it died down, and everybody really was able to kind of catch up with themselves for a little bit. You look and see all these people dying, you see all this, you remember what it was, nobody going out, this and that. And just looking to the future, and it's like, wow, we already survived 9/11, World Trade Center. I survived Hurricane Irma. I was in Miami. I survived earthquakes, all this shit in California when I was living in Los Angeles. And it's just like, you're 40, and it's like, wow, man, can it get any worse, with this shit? But I was brave enough to really pray and get my shit together and say, you know what, man, this isn't the end. This is just really this is really what the Bible was saying. This is a tribulation, you know what I mean? But like, I remember what it said, you know, there's going to be some tested by the sword, there's going to be some tested with death, some with sickness, some thrown in jail, but those that are brave enough will come out pure than gold, etc., etc., etc. So it's like, I said to myself, you know what? I know what I got to do. I got to seriously quit smoking cigarettes. I got to seriously quit smoking weed. I got to seriously quit being a simp, save my money, stop investing in music, right? Because before all this shit, Dr. Dre back in the day was like trying to have an island by the year 2G. If I'd only listened to that back then, and I'd have got my shit together and stopped, you know what I mean, save for a rainy day, 2020 would have been here. I don't know, you know what I mean? But no, I had to bust my fucking ass to survive this shit. But I did. I went to work. I was landscaping through the pandemic. You know, I bought a vest and I went straight to it. You know, I became a responder immediately. You know what I mean? I had to remember, like, holy shit, yo. I used to work for University Police at Penn State. Let me just fucking get my shit together. You know what I mean? So, but the important thing is this, right? To be completely honest, and this is gonna make young people laugh, and I'm young too, but I'm grown, right? I'm mature, right? But I'm not gonna be young forever. I'm really in the prime, right? This is prime, which means this is showtime. Here's the thing. To some people, if you have no sex life, you absolutely have no life. And that is so false. To some people, if you don't have no drugs or no alcohol or no money, or even if you have basic money, like even the word basic, right? It's not a cool term like it used to be, or really like it should be. To be basic is to be humble, right? To be basic is to get by, just to get by. But just to get by isn't cool to some people. Even though if you just get by today, you could be a millionaire eventually. Probably not tomorrow, but eventually. If you play your cards right. Right? You know? But here's the thing. If you have life, period, you are blessed abundantly, as if you're balling. You should be happy as fuck. And I have to tell myself this sometimes, because I woke up today. Somebody took their last breath today. You understand? It's real. So here's the thing. This is really the important thing. When you, and I chose not to party, not to date, not to have sex. Not just this month, the month before, the month before that, the month before that. The last time I had sex was probably like 3 months ago. Some people had sex every day this month, and they think it's like you live the life that everybody wants. It's really, that's not true, because what you're actually doing is you're putting seeds in a woman, but how you treat her is how she's gonna judge you or judge me. Trust me, I used to do that shit. I used to have sex all the time, every single day. And it's not that I can't do it. I could still do it. But this is what registered when God spoke to me. What if one of those seeds hits the egg and something comes out and I gotta take care of it? You know how much it costs to take care of a kid? It could cost you your life if you don't have enough money. It costs too much money. Yeah, I already know that, man. I take care of all my kids. That's what your mouth says. That's not what she says, dog. That's not what she says. And every guy that has kids or even attempted to knows what I'm talking about. You're never done paying for kids until the day you die. She could be cool today. 10 years later, she's going to take your house, your car, everything. She's going to take you to the ringer because that's the day that the straw broke the camel's back. All right? So here's the truth. My Johnson means a lot to me. But believe it or not, it doesn't mean everything. My life means everything. And that's the reason why I'm going to live till at least 90 or 100. And some people may think that's funny, but it's not to me. I mean, I might laugh a little later when I watch the video, but not really, because I'm a serious-ass guy. Listen, here's the thing. This is the reason why a lot of people may not live, because I'm not God. I don't know who's going to live longer and who's going to live lesser in my life, anybody's life, your life, whoever's life. I don't know. Only God knows that. But I can tell you this, though. If you stopped being sexually active, if you became impotent, if you had erectile dysfunction so bad it just didn't work at all, and you say, you know what? Like, oh my God, he said erectile. I can't pay attention to this video anymore. You're not serious, man. You're not really serious about life. Do you see me laughing at all? I'm going to pause for 10 seconds. Tell me if I laugh. No laugh. So listen, if it's so bad that you want to kill yourself, you're not strong enough. You're really not strong enough to do a lot of things. But if you reach that point and you still keep going, you know what you are? You're a good grandpa. You're not a bad grandpa. Because that's not a joke. This is the test that God puts before every man who's here on earth. Because God giveth, and then God taketh away. And none of us know what he's going to take whenever he decides to take it, however he decides to take it, whensoever he wants to take it, whether it's for me or you. So I could think I'm going to go outside today and I might lose one of my legs, and I'm cool with that because I think, I can get a prosthetic leg, right? So instead of losing my leg, he takes my arm. And I go to the doctor and said, hey, maybe I can get a prosthetic arm. How much does it cost? $5 billion. Well, I only have 5,000. I could give you a left arm. And you know which arm he took? My right arm. That's how life is. That's exactly how life is, It's not funny. I could think that, man, everything is great. You ever seen that movie with Kathy Bates and Woody Allen? He's a writer. He gets kidnapped by some obsessed fan. It's not like a terrorist. It's not Al Qaeda. It's not Taliban. It's not the cartel. It's a chick that's big and fat, and she's brolic enough to pick him up and break his ankles and tie him to a bed. How does that happen? You would think that he'd be able to stop that because he's a guy, and she's fat, and she's short. It didn't happen like that because she thought it out over 1 billion times, and she could outthink the guy. As smart as the guy was, he couldn't leave. She broke both of his ankles. She went to the store, came back. He tried to get out of the bed, but he knocked the penguin, but the penguin is facing south when she left, and it was facing north when she came back. So that's life, somebody that looks like Kathy Bates one day could, take a hammer to your nads and they could work perfectly fine the day before, and the next day they don't work. So it's not just privy to try and have good karma and treat people good, it only makes sense to just think about these things because God giveth and God taketh away. I hate to say it, like, I'm not even joking at all. So the point of what I'm saying is this, and some people are like, man, this is a really crazy video. It's not, man. It's just a dead-ass video. You thought this was church? It's Monday already. Church was yesterday. You missed it, all right? And you're at the wrong building. It's down the street. So long story short, this is Donnie's show, all right? And I know I talk a little bit religious, but I don't get too much into that, man, because you know, I chose science, man. Religion ain't me. But long story short, you know, you really gotta think, and this is the moral to the story. I thought about it today, but I've been thinking about it for a while. You start thinking about this when you're 40. This is how you know your will is stronger than you thought it was. You know, because when you're young, you listen to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't care about their life. But when you get away from those people, you know, I really do care about myself. I'm gonna really start changing some of the things that I do. And this is what I'm saying. Believe it or not, your brain is the most important part of your body. I hate to tell you, but it is. And it's a really, really honest question you have to ask yourself as a man. If you stop wanting to live, and it's easy to say now, but that's because my Johnson is still working. Tomorrow, if it stops working, you're gonna see if I could actually reflect the same belief that I have prior to. It's easy to know something, but it's hard to move on even though you know what the right road is to choose. You know what I mean? It's just, I know the right road to choose, but to walk that road, you never know what tomorrow brings, man. It takes heart. So the heart is very important too, but the brain is important the most, because out of everything, if you took away your brain, you're dead. If you took away your heart, you died too. So you need them both, right? But if you took away your sexual passion, your desire to have sex, the only thing that's gonna die is your pride. And this is what the Bible talks about. Let me go back to it, and I hate to be religious, but it's called killing sin. And you're really not killing sin. That's taken a little bit too far, and that's the reason why I try not to use religious terms, all right, when I'm explaining things. If you look at it from a psychological standpoint and not a religious standpoint, it's called disciplining yourself. It's called getting a grown man's regimen. Training, because here's why a lot of people don't want to go to work, because this is why I didn't want to go to work back in the day when I didn't really work the kind of jobs that I do now. The first thing you want to do when you wake up is smoke weed. After you do that, you want to find a female and have sex with her. But what about the guy that gets up? He wants to have sex. He wants to smoke weed. He wants to sit at home. He wants to eat potato chips. But he picks up his toolbox and he goes and he works on some houses. Or he grabs his, his hard hat and he goes to the construction site and starts, pouring some concrete in the hot ass sun. And doesn't come home, and he just spends the day with a bunch of guys. And to everybody else, it looks so glorious because we're thinking about that paycheck that he's gonna get and all the chicks that are gonna want him and the chicks that are looking at those guys and not us. if we're not that part of that crew. I'm not speaking for myself, I'm just speaking for people so you get the general idea, right? Why do people do that? You know, those females, they're looking at those guys because they know when they're done, they're looking at the ones that are actually gonna quit. Believe it or not, some of you don't know how females' minds work. I'm gonna tell you straight like this. They're trying to figure out which one of those guys are gonna quit their job and which guys are gonna stick with it until the end of the pay period. Getting their steps down so they could be right there at the end of the pay period. Same way they look at you when you're in your fat. Notice females treat guys with jobs differently. Even if you work at Burger King or McDonald's, they go into McDonald's, get, you know, McChicken, a burger, a fish, whatever. And no, I'm just laughing because people, they think women don't eat fish. Women do eat fish too. Trust me, I used to work at McDonald's. I used to come and order all the time, right? But long story short, no. Didn't you take my order last time? How may I help you? Yeah, that was you. You can say yeah. Man, can I help you? Oh, okay. Are you working? Yeah, you don't want to get fired. You so cute. I'll take a spicy fish and a big fish to go. No drink, no fries, no bag. Okay. And what's my total? 11:38. All right, cool. Hot as well. What you doing afterwards? You know what I'm saying? So you know you get the treatment. Everybody gets the treatment, right? But the important thing is, you know what I mean? Listen. Everybody wants to be relevant to females. Even when you're not that, you want to be relevant to your boys. What about being just relevant in general? What about being relevant to God? Right? And this is not just, you know, to go to heaven. This is just, you know what I mean? Just in general. What about just being relevant? And that's the important part, right? Because work is so important. And I'm not talking about work on everybody else's time. You know, because some people thought I was going to graduate sooner. And they're surprised that I still haven't graduated. They're like, what are the certificates for? Doesn't that mean graduation? No, it means a level of attainment. I still got more to go. But yeah, but how are you doing the things that you're doing? Forget it. If you don't know what remote work is, you'll never know, right? So, the important thing that I'm saying is, some people, right, like, they don't understand, like, in your younger days, a woman is achievement. When you really get mature, a house, you pay off a house, that's achievement. You have a car, that's achievement. But you have a car and a house and you pass it on to somebody before you go, that's legacy. All right? Not only that though, building a house, right? Whew, man, you know? You have no idea, right? Those guys that build churches, whole communities remember who they are. They might not name the church after the guy, but there'll be a plaque that said this church was built by this organization, or this organization donated money, but it was built by this construction company or whatever, you know what I mean? Even if it's not, people remember those people and they see their kids like, you know, your great grandpa, he built this church. He was a great man, you know? He really wasn't shit in the bed. Did I say that? No, I didn't mean that. You didn't hear that. Dear Jesus. All right. So, he really wasn't that Superman lover like the other guys. You know what I mean? But I always remember him for building his church or whatever it is. So, that's what I think more so these days. And it's not because, again, it's not because my Johnson doesn't work. It's not because I'm not Superman lover. It's because if you don't think about this, you're going to be depressed. You are going to go to drugs. Or you're going to hurt yourself. Or something's going to be wrong. You're going to be in a daze. Or you're just going to really, it's you're gonna be really socially awkward, all right? And not only that, you won't, no matter what you go to school for, you're not gonna be able to pass. So you have to develop the ability to shut your brain off from sex for a minute and focus on schoolwork, and then turn it back on in time to go on a date and enjoy your youth. Because I'm not going to be this age forever. Eventually, that time is going to pass and it is going to be a wrap. And then the real test is going to come. How bad do I really, really want to live? What can I find a purpose besides sex in this life? Okay? So, but that's really, you know, and because look, like, how do you feel? Let's say you're a landscaper, you cut people's grass. When you're done mowing the lawn for somebody as a young man, how do you feel? It should really bring you joy, because it really brings me joy. I cut people's grasses. There's a church down the street, I cut their whole front lawn, right? I felt good. I felt pride in that because, you know, it makes the church look beautiful. But not only that, you know, it's some kid walking by might have looked at me and said, man, I was just thinking about flipping a pack today. Or I was thinking about going to rob somebody today, but I saw that guy mowing the lawn and he's black. Instead of doing what my OG wants me to do, I'm gonna get a lawnmower instead of flipping a pack.